The remainder of the week, I felt very off, and I knew I had to tell this person that this is actually a solo trip and a solo time for me, and I don't feel open to sharing this experience with someone. So I worked up the courage to send that text, and I don't know if it was received well. I might not have a relationship with this person anymore because
Welcome to Partners in Sublime, where we explore the teachings of depth psychology and Vedic philosophy to achieve the highest levels of personal growth and self-actualization. Join me as we tap into the unconscious for intuitive guidance and creative direction. I'm your host, Shagun Chopra. Let's begin. Hi everyone, welcome to today's episode of Partners in Sublime. Today we're going to talk about the cost of being nice. But when, how, and where do we get into this pattern in the first place? Being nice is something we're all taught to do, sometimes directly, and sometimes we just infer it based on what's going on around us. From the time you're a baby, if you're not sharing your toys, you're not being nice. If you are being mean to someone, you're not being nice. If you're not saying please and thank you, you're not being nice. You are constantly being conditioned to take on a role in which you are a nice, amicable, and easy to get along with person. And this is for good reason. If you were so mean that you couldn't be friendly with anyone, you would be ostracized from society. I remember when I was a little kid, I would go visit one of my aunts during the summer break. And one of my favorite fruits, we call it lychee in India, it's called lychee in the US, was in season. And there was a hawker going by that was selling that fruit. And my aunt asked me if I would like some. Now, this is my favorite fruit in the whole wide world. And I was somewhere in elementary school. I don't remember exactly how old I was. And I remember saying, yes, I would like 2 kgs, which is a lot of quantity for a little person. And for people in the US, that's about 4.5 pounds. So clearly, I was not shy in asking for what I wanted. And immediately I remember my mom pulled me aside and said, that's not nice. You can't ask for so much and inconvenience your aunt. She has to go out, stop the hawker, buy the fruit, pay for it, and then serve it to you. And I remember in that moment thinking that, oh, it means that I can't really say what I want to say. But I was young and resisting that conditioning, and I said it anyway. And I ate a heartful of that fruit and was so happy to have done that, much to my mother's agony. So if that's how we all are as little kids, being able to say what we really want and not being nice just because we have to, then what exactly happens that makes us change our mind? There is a lot of conditioning that goes on, and there's different forms of conditioning. There's the classical conditioning in which you form an association of something that's relatively neutral. For instance, in Pavlovian experiments, whenever a dog was fed food, somebody also rang the bell. And pretty soon, the dog would start salivating at the sound of the bell, even if no food was present. That is classical conditioning. Operant conditioning works in different ways. Operant conditioning is based on how we are rewarded or what happens after we engage in a particular behavior. Every time somebody is nice and hands over a piece of their cookie to a friend, we say, wow, you're a good boy, you're sharing. And every time we don't do that, we get a slap on the wrist or some stern look from our parent, and we start to learn by others' responses to our behavior what is good and what is not. And you keep repeating that year over year over year, and you have conditioned yourself into being a relatively nice person. Now, we all have varying degrees of niceness as part of our personality, but I think we would all agree that in general, being nice is regarded as a good thing in society. And whatever is necessary for our survival in society, for our safety, for us being able to thrive in a social context, our ego loves that. The ego is a part of our mind, part of our psyche, whose function is to make sure that we fit in. So the ego loves for you to have a nice persona, a nice personality, so that you readily fit in wherever you go. And now, because the ego is so focused on keeping you that way, anything that doesn't meet the cut of being a nice person goes in your shadow. I've talked about these concepts several times in the past, the persona is the face we show to the world, and the shadow is everything we have to suppress in order to show that face. So if you want to come across as amicable, open, friendly, nice, then you can't be assertive, you can't set boundaries, you can't make firm statements that make people feel like you're too uptight. So all that goes in your unconscious. And James Hollis, one of my favorite Jungian analysts, says that some of our most cherished qualities, such as the quality of being nice in this case, become the best and most sophisticated hiding places for our shadow. Because it is in upholding those values, those relatively strict and specific values, we create a lot of shadow material, a lot of ourselves that does not get to come to the forefront. As a grown adult, you continue to try to keep up with that nice persona by saying yes to things that you don't want to attend, you can't handle, or just don't matter to you as much. And you continue to pull yourself further and further away from your truest wishes and desires. So how do you get yourself out of this mess? As with everything shadow related, you have to give this shadow, this part of you that has been suppressed and repressed for so long, a way to come out, a way to show itself. First, you need to listen to it, pay attention to it, see what it wants, and then you have the free will to choose in what ways you will allow yourself to not be nice. And by making it a choice instead of a compulsion, you take the power away from your ego and you reclaim it as one that belongs to your higher self. I think now's a good time to transition to this episode's coaching session. This one is with someone I'll call Selena, who is grappling with a recent incident where she was nice but did not feel good about it. I think it beautifully illustrates the sort of mental gymnastics we go through whenever we're faced with a situation when we can be true to ourselves or we can be nice. So I'll let you listen to the session and I will see you on the other side. Conversations on Partners in Sublime are for educational purposes only and do not constitute medical or psychological advice or treatment. Please consult a licensed professional for any mental health concerns. Hi Selena, what is feeling alive within you today?
So I recently navigated some personal boundary circumstance situation this past week, and that feels very alive for me recently, is like stating my boundaries and trying to feel good about them instead of feeling like uncomfortable or like shame around it.
Yeah. In what context did you have to set the boundary?
So I have a newer friend in my life, and I wanted to say newer because I don't feel that close to this person, or that me and this person have that deep of a connection. It's someone new in my life that I'm still getting to know. And this person, their name's Sam, we had been trying to catch up for a while, and they called me like the day I was finalizing some plans that I have for next month that's like a very big deal for me, like a very important trip that I'm going on, something that I've been planning for a long time. And so they called me in the moment that I was like booking. So I was like obviously very excited. And in the moment, I honestly knew that, like, intuitively my body was like, maybe don't answer this right now. But then I was like having this feeling of, but no, like, you feel really good. Like, it's okay to share what you're doing. It's okay to share, like, joy or whatever. So I ended up taking their call. We were catching up for a little bit, and then I obviously couldn't contain my excitement, so I started sharing my plan and what I was doing, and their immediate reaction was like, "Oh, like, can I come? Like, I want to do that too. Like, there was something that I was thinking of doing next month, but it wasn't feeling that aligned, and actually what you're telling me, what your plans are sound like way more exciting and just like really inspiring, and like I want to go there too and do that too." They were like, "But I can get my own place, like we don't have to like coordinate anything." And like in the moment I just immediately went into like freeze, and I just felt like I don't know. It wasn't the reaction or response that I was expecting because I kind of just wanted someone to be like, I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. Like, that's so exciting.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, I was met with, how can I be a part of that? Which just, it it started to disconnect me. Um, but in the moment, I think I was just trying to be nice. And I was like, yeah, like, let's talk about it. Like, maybe we can meet up, whatever. I don't think I obviously didn't really mean that, but I was just like, how do you tell someone in the moment no to
Mm-hmm.
something like that? Felt like, I don't know, I guess I didn't know how to do that yet. Um, so the remainder of the week, I felt very off, and I knew I had to tell this person that this is actually a solo trip and like a solo time for me, and I don't feel open to sharing this experience with someone.
Mm-hmm.
So I worked up the courage to send that text, and I don't know if it was received well. It seemed more like they were confused because I had said that it would be okay. But
Mm-hmm.
my whole thing is like, I'm allowed to change my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it was uncomfortable to send that text because it meant that I might not have a relationship with this person anymore because it just doesn't feel aligned.
Yeah. So this whole thing happened over a week, and you went through your journey. It was unsettling, to say the least, the whole experience. When you narrate that story to me now, and I know it's very much alive still, which is why you're bringing it up,
Yeah.
what part of this thing sticks in your mind the most as like the most uncomfortable or emotionally charged part?
There's actually two parts. The first part is when I saw her call, and inside of me, a part was like, don't answer this, don't tell her about this. But I proceeded to anyways, out of not that I was giving her the benefit of the doubt, but like in a way I was. I thought like, this is an exciting thing to share. Like, I want to share my life with people, but it just obviously didn't feel like it was the right person. So that moment of like the intuition kind of feeling like it's alive and then going against it. And then the second part that felt very charged was having to state that boundary in the end because it felt like a lesson that was it's not even I felt it was a lesson that was repeating itself because I was in similar situations where I didn't express my boundary and I dealt with the repercussions of shared space with someone that did not serve me.
If I had to narrow down what your personality is, or persona as we call it in Jungian psychology based on this, I think typically you show up as a nice and an intuitive person. And it's not just how you show up to the world, but that's kind of also how you see yourself. And and I would totally see why, knowing what I know about you. Like nice, intuitive. So those two parts stand out because in the first one you betrayed yourself, you betrayed your intuition, so you went against what you know who you think you are. And in the second one, it also feels weird because you set a boundary, and nice people often don't set boundaries and they let people walk all over them. So both of them were foreign a little bit to this general capsule of you that you think you are, that you present as. Does that sound right?
Completely.
Okay, great. So instead of focusing on like what you could have done differently, or like set boundaries, and we're gonna just use this to learn a little bit more about you, because what this indicates is that there's a split in you where some things make the cut and are okay and acceptable, and other things are like, yeah, I'd rather not be like the strict boundary setter. Or you're also judging yourself for not listening to your intuition. So there's some judgment about, like, if there was a person you met who was totally ignoring what their body or their inner voice is telling them, you'd probably judge them too, because you judged yourself in the moment. So there's that judgment against these two. Um, which one should we start with first, you think?
Mm, the being nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's start there. Um, what happens to people who are not nice?
They get talked about behind their back. They're not talked about nicely.
Yeah. People say mean things about them. They're not well loved or accepted. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then what happens to those people?
Um, Maybe they're lonely or might not be accepted by community or might not have um, good people in their life that they can lean on and be supported by.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep playing that out a little bit more. Like, let's say there is somebody who's not accepted in the community, not part of it, not liked, not loved, not respected. What
Yeah.
ultimately happens to them?
Um, Loneliness, depression, sadness, just despair.
When people say that, I'm such a people pleaser and I have trouble setting boundaries, it's not as simple as that. Like, in your mind, you're thinking that if I did set this boundary, then I'm going to end up this way. I'm going to be lonely and depressed and live in this sense of despair. So that's what you're trying to avoid by being the nice one. The stakes are high in your mind, in your ego mind at least, the stakes are high. So let's zoom it out from this situation to your whole life. Do you feel like you generally put a lot of pressure on yourself to not experience these feelings?
Yeah. I wouldn't use the word pressure, but I do feel like I try to protect and control.
Yeah. Let's imagine for a moment that you don't need to protect yourself from these feelings. You don't need to control. What might open up for you?
I feel like I might feel more at ease, more able to just um, free flow and like trust that, what's here and what's meant for me is going to be meant for me, and what's not is not, and that's okay too. It's okay for things and people to not be aligned with me.
Yeah. So you're putting, when I use the word pressure, I think that's what I was trying to allude to, because whether you recognize it or not, but subconsciously you're dedicating a lot of energy into keeping yourself away from those labels and those states.
Yeah, I can see that.
So maybe we use a dial. So right now you are controlling it like 10 on 10. I'm going to give people what they want to hear versus truly what I feel in the moment. So that dials at a 10. If you were to take that dial down a little bit, maybe like a 8 on 10, and you weren't as focused, what are some things that, even smallest things, that you might be doing differently?
As in, what actions would I take?
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it would be a matter of taking less action, actually, because I feel like I wouldn't be trying to play defense as much, trying to like fluff up a text as much or a response or a reaction to like be digestible or be what I think this person wants to hear or be what I think I would like to be perceived as, like trying to control how I'm being perceived, which isn't really even possible. But I feel like if I tune that down, I wouldn't try as much. I would be more just whatever it is that I want or that what it feels good, I guess.
That's so insightful because really it's not about doing more when you turn the dial down. It's about just being. And I'm guessing you took a lot of time to draft that text and
Yeah.
mental energy,
A
which you're
lot of
based,
time
yeah.
and a lot of asking, even asking other friends, does this sound like good? Both of the people that I consulted were like, you need to take this out. You don't, basically the, what my friends told me were like, you do not owe anyone an explanation. Like you do not need to explain yourself. And I think that was the push and pull is like me wanting to explain myself, but not from a place of like wanting to prove myself, more so the other person can understand. And I think that's just like who I am as a person, but I'm learning that not everyone deserves that for some reason.
And we can make it about the other person, like what they can or cannot take, or what they will or will not respond to. But really, it's about overcoming our own fear of being seen as someone who's an outsider, who's not nice, who's talked about. By focusing on their reaction, we turn all our power over to them versus keeping it with us.
Mm-hmm.
So, um, let's maybe close our eyes for this part and imagine this alter ego, this different version of you. It's a Selena that is not spending any energy controlling things to make sure that she's nice, she's not othered from the group, she doesn't feel lonely or isolated. She has no pressure. She can just be. She doesn't need to take all this time, write elaborate texts, get it checked by people. She doesn't have to do any of that. So that version of you is going to go through last week. Think of it as like a movie, but you replaced your previous character with a new character. And if it helps you, you can make the whole scene black and white to really make it a movie. And now I want you to imagine that you're excited and getting ready for your trip, and you see the phone, or your character sees the phone, and this person, Sam, is reaching out. What might this character be doing instead?
I would say, hey, I'll get back to you at another time.
And how does it feel to say that?
Feels right.
Keep playing it out. Let's say you finish all your bookings and everything that you need to do, and now you have a free minute, and you reach out to this person to return their call. What might you say or do?
So this is interesting because my mind wants to play out like two situations. Like it wants to still take the call
Mm-hmm.
and share the news and have that reaction, but then course correct what they said to me and be like, actually, this is a solo trip, and just being very honest about that.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and there's this other part of me that's like, that would catch up with them, but not say anything about the trip at all.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah. Wherever you feel your psyche is leading you, you should go there. If you want to answer the call, let's do that.
yeah, I wouldn't answer the call.
This new version of you is answering the call. Notice how this new you feels.
Yeah, I feel like whatever they say, they can't project or intercept my energy or my plans or my joy.
So now this person is asking you if they can come along for the trip.
Yeah, and I say, this is a solo adventure. This is something that I've been planning on doing on my own, and I intend to keep it that way. So I don't feel open to sharing this experience, but maybe there's something else down the line that I would be.
How is the character feeling now?
Great. Like I said, what I actually felt and meant.
I think that is it, to always say how you actually
Yeah.
feel and want to say. Yeah. Just stay with that state for a little bit, and we're gonna do this exercise where you're gonna ask this character, because this character is there, it's within you, but doesn't quite get to come out sometimes in moments like these when you get a little bit scared for your own sense of belongingness, and you don't want to be lonely, which is fair. It all comes from our past. Sometime, somewhere, we learn to be that way. So this character is inside you. It can come out if you consciously invite it. And now you just want to ask this character what message they have for you going forward. In essence, you're trying to ask them, what would it take for them to show up as needed much more easily? You may get an answer in words or a symbol, image, whatever comes, just take it. Once you have that, you may thank this version of you. It's all a part of you. When you're ready, you can Take a deep breath, stretch, open your eyes.
Wow.
How was it like to be that person, even briefly?
It felt right. It felt like there's a part of me that knows. I need to not go against that part of me that like knows and is capable of saying how I truly feel. If there's a boundary that I need to state, like she's there, just trusting her to let her speak up and advocate.
What message did she give you?
Trust.
What do you make of that message?
I make that like if I trust her and I let her lead in conversations and connections that like who's really meant to be in my life, connections that really serve me and fulfill me and uplift me are going to remain. And if there's any that are misaligned, they might weed out, and like that's also okay. Like you don't need to keep everyone around for everyone's sake of like coming across as like a well-intended person. Sometimes things are just not, or sometimes connections are just not aligned at this time, and that's totally okay. But um yeah, that version of me is more okay with having less friends.
I think one thing I would add is that if you are a divine being who is made of pure consciousness and you're living in a body, then there is no reason to be afraid of loneliness, sadness, despair. Like, that's what your body and, one layer of your mind are going through. But the core of you is untouched. Nothing's messing with it. You can't wet the soul with a drop of water. You can't cut it. You can't, like, it's indestroyable. So you don't have to protect that part of you. Because,
Wow. Thank
yeah,
you. That very much resonates.
yeah. Usually we disconnect with our true divine nature when we start to get into managing things around us and protecting ourselves, because can the body get hurt? Yes. Can our emotions feel negative? Yes. Does that mean that's who we are? No. We want to keep this in mind, that this is what we're doing. We are from that place of consciousness, from that witness, we are looking at the body versus being in it and feeling trapped by it and thinking that we have to do all these things to keep things under control. How are you feeling now?
I'm gonna sit with that for a while, definitely, because that feels very real. Getting caught up with like protecting the divine nature of the soul, like it's intrinsic. It doesn't need protection. It just is. So yeah, you've given me a lot to think about.
Yeah, yeah, no, sit with it. It's a great feeling when we can connect to that part of ourselves. And the world is designed so that we lose that connection at the drop of a hat. There's Maya. It makes us think like, no, this physical reality is real. My desk is real. My wall is real. But it's just a veil. That's what the ancient texts say, that it makes us think that the external world is real, but what's really real is the conscious world. And you know all that, and I'm just reminding you.
Yeah, I know the feeling is like, oh, it's always a feeling of like remembering because it's easy to forget.
All of us do that. Yeah. I'll forget it like maybe 10 minutes after this call.
Yeah.
So, yeah, but just to keep
Yeah.
coming back to it.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back. Thank you for listening to Selena's session. There was so much richness in there, and I'm so glad that she took something that people would consider relatively small and benign, but really used that to do some serious inner work. It is by paying attention to these small things that irk us, that do not leave us alone, and we get to the heart of what is in our unconscious. So let's start with Selena's conditioning. I spoke about that at the beginning of the episode. She is interested in wellness and spirituality and a more new agey form of spirituality. And in that culture, there's a lot of emphasis on gratitude, on having an abundance mindset, of sharing your joy and not being guarded. And all those are great things. The persona becomes a persona for a reason, right? Those things are good and accepted. But when we become compulsively attached to being that way, we start to ignore our inner voice, which is exactly what she does when she gets the phone call. Even Brené Brown, whose work I'm a huge fan of, would say that sharing is being vulnerable. And I totally agree. If you armor up, then you're not really being vulnerable, and that's a bad thing. And I think when we create a blanket concept like that, that's when the split within ourselves arises. Vulnerability can become yet another part of our persona that we have to do versus it being something we do because we want to do it. When Selena gets the phone call, her body immediately senses and tells her that this is not something I want to entertain right now. Selena briefly acknowledges that impulse, but before she can act on it, her ego steps in and quickly justifies that sensation away. How does it do that? Ego has a lot of defense mechanisms in place to make sure that the conscious self never gets to know the pain, the shame, the anxiety of what is lying beneath the surface in the unconscious. And maybe I'll do a separate episode on defense mechanisms one day. But the two that I see Selena using in this case, or I see Selena's ego use rather, were rationalization and reaction formation. Rationalization is when we have a thought that we consider uncomfortable, unacceptable. So we quickly talk ourselves out of it and tell ourselves, no, no, that's nothing. She has that thought, okay, don't pick up the phone, don't share with this person. And she immediately rationalizes it away and says, no, sharing is good. You should share your joy. You should be open. You should be vulnerable. So she replaces an unacceptable impulse with a more rational thought. But she doesn't stop there. She actually takes it a step further. Instead of going from I don't like this, to a neutral place, she actually does the opposite. She becomes enthusiastic about talking to this friend about all her future plans that were very sacred to her. Reaction formation is when impulse or feeling is so unacceptable to us that not only do we have to get rid of it, we must do the opposite thing. So think about somebody that you really don't like, but for whatever reason, maybe it's because of your friend group, maybe it's because of the circumstances or environment you're in, you can't really not be nice to them. So instead of keeping your distance from them, you start to be overly nice to them. This is when you're overcompensating for a negative impulse that you don't know why exists, but you definitely don't want to acknowledge it. So, when someone is just being really nice to you and your spidey sense goes up and you think, wait, why are they being so nice to me? I think that is your ego's attempt at detecting reaction formation in another person. Because if their attitude toward you doesn't match what you think it should be, maybe they are exaggerating and maybe they are going in the other direction of what they're feeling. Now, don't use that to make up stories about other people, but recognize this defense in yourself if you're prone to it. Do you try to be extra nice when you don't feel like doing something? Then maybe you're engaging in reaction formation too. So that's what Selena's ego does. She's not even aware of it, but the ego immediately recognizes this sensation that, hey, I shouldn't talk to this person or share with them as something that needs to be managed away because it goes contrary to her nice persona. And as a result of that, Selena acts in ways that are different from how she would have if she had listened to her inner voice. And you saw what happened as a result. And again, I must reiterate, sharing can be a great quality, but if you have to do it, you've fallen into the ego's trap. Because then you're doing it even when it goes against your inner wisdom, which in this case was pretty clear from the very beginning. In Vedic philosophy, we actually have a word for an armor that is used to protect something sacred. It is not by default bad or guarded and you're not being vulnerable. It is something that is used to keep what is sacred protected from the world. And that word is kavach. If Selena had come to see that this desire to not share her joy is coming from a place of protecting something that was sacred to her, of constructing a kavach around her future plans, then she may have reacted differently. She might have said something like, hey, this is a solo adventure and I want to keep it that way. So there is no apologizing, no over explaining, It just is what it is. And she's able to access the part of her that does want to say that when we do the active imagination. I asked Selena to be her alter ego, her shadow essentially, and go through the same scene and see how different it would feel if she wasn't trying to manage away these impulses that were otherwise unacceptable to her. In this mode, she had no doubt about what she had to do. And that yet again illustrates that when we give room to the shadow to express itself, we get in touch with our higher self. So if something small happens in your life that leaves a bad taste in your mouth, you can either brush it away and try not to think about it, or you can do what Selena did. Get really deep into it, and even the smallest thing could be the gateway to something large and vast that is hidden in your unconscious. And when that unconscious comes to the surface, so much energy that is logged in is released, and you feel this sense of freedom and lightness because you are no longer trying to keep that part of you pushed beneath the surface. That is why it is so draining to be nice all the time. So do yourself a favor. Instead of always having to be nice, choose when you want to be nice and make that choice in alignment with your higher self. That is all I have for you today. I hope you enjoyed today's show, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for being my partner in Sublime today. I hope you enjoyed diving into the unconscious with me. To ask a question or get coached on the show, visit shagunchopra.com/ask or click the link below. See you next time.